Now that I've given you a synopsis of the first 4 trumpet judgments, let's look at each one individually and give the proper interpretation as to how it relates to world history. Concerning the first trumpet, Revelation 8:7 states, "The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up." This verse is speaking of the Visigoths under King Arlic, who first attacked the eastern part of the Roman Empire by land from the north in approximately 395 AD, but it proved too great a conquest for him to defeat the Eastern Roman Empire. So he moved against the western part of the Roman Empire in approximately 401 AD, waging war for over 10 years and finally sacking Rome in 410 AD. These Gothic invaders ravaged and rampaged the western part of the empire, devastating its provinces by fire and sword, invading Italy and Spain twice, and twice besieging Rome itself. Together with these Gothic invaders came an army of 250,000 Vandals, Suevi, and Burgundians, whose bloodthirsty advance is described by Gibbon, the historian, which states, "The consuming flames of war spread from the banks of the Rhine over the greatest part of the 17 provinces by the Gauls. The scene of plenty was suddenly changed into a desert." Rome was finally defeated on August 24th, 410 AD, and it was the first time in almost 800 years that the Western Roman Empire fell to an enemy. The historian Gibbon also writes, describing the siege of Rome by the Goths, also known as the Visigoths, used the very language of the Apocalypse and says, "The inhabitants were awakened by the tremendous sound of the Gothic trumpets." These trumpet judgments against Rome were also for the strange fire and false religion and its persecution of the apostolic believers who stood against the papacy. After all, it was because of their persecution by Rome and their prayers that reached the altar in heaven that the trumpet judgments were sent by the Almighty. Now the word trees in prophecy, according to Psalms 1 verse 3 and Isaiah 61 verse 3, refers to Yahuwah's people, and in this case is referring to those of the apostate Roman Catholic Church being judged, whom 1/3 of the entire Roman Empire were slaughtered by the Visigoths' invasion, primarily in the west, during their reign of terror, before they finally sacked Western Rome successfully. The trees and green grass have both a literal and symbolic meaning, as this prophecy fits this time period perfectly. For the Goths pillaged and set fire to the rich farms, vineyards, and towns in Gaul, Spain, and Italy, leaving the environment as a scorched earth and removing all peace. In Judges 9, the word trees is used as a symbol or code word for the chief men in society over nations. And many generals and governors of the imperial Roman Empire fell before Alaric and the Goths. The grass is a symbol of the citizens of Rome, who all perished if they did not flee to the eastern part of the Roman Empire. The symbols of blood, hail, and fire remind us of the plagues which Yahuwah poured out on Pharaoh in Egypt. Their purpose was to free Yahuwah's people, Israel, from heathen tyranny. And similarly, under the 7th seal's blowing of the first trumpet, the Gothic invasions resulted in the withdrawal of the Roman legions from England and Wales, thus freeing apostolic messianic believers in the Isles from the yoke of imperial Rome. Fire and blood need no explanation, for they followed the Gothic armies, while hail is used in Scripture to symbolize warfare in both Job 38, verses 22 and 23, and also Ezekiel 38, verse 22. It is interesting to note that Alaric showed mercy to the Nazarenes' places of worship, and whilst Roman palaces and villas were sacked and destroyed, these places were spared. It is believed that this was probably because a large section of the Goths had embraced the Nazarene beliefs through the ministry of Ulpilas, and some even believe that the Goths contained many descendants of the Israelites from the lost tribes. The sad part of all this is the real possibility that all these peoples who make up the nations of the barbarians and the empire of Rome and their apostate church are all probably, for the most part, descendants of Abraham from the 10 lost tribes that were scattered into the nations 700 years before the birth of Messiah, because it is a proven historical fact that they all migrated to these countries. So, in reality, we have brother killing brother as part of Yahuwah's curses levied upon them when they were scattered to the nations in what is no doubt religious wars fought over what sons of the living God would control the known Roman earth and what religious doctrines would prevail and govern the people. These are the same underlying roots for the reasons why many wars are still fought today. We've not changed that much. We're still fighting over who is going to rule. I'm Bill Sanford, trying to put the book of Revelation in proper perspective in our day.